Okay, chapter 3, lesson 4, the slope of a line. The first thing we have to talk about is, remember that the slope of the line, it tells you how to move from point to point. And most of the time with the slope, you've heard it described as the rise over the run. Well, we remember it as the y's, because the rise and the y's rhyme, and the y is the up and down over the x's. And the important thing to remember too with slope is if you have a negative slope, the negative sign goes with the y. And the x is always positive. So for the run part of it, we always will go to the right. So we can go up or down from point to point, but then we always go to the right. Today what we're going to do is we're going to be calculating the slope if you're given 2 points. So to find the slope of a line, when given 2 points, we use the formula y's. So we use the second y point and the first y coordinate and subtract them over the second x coordinate and the first x coordinate subtracted. Another note is another name for slope. You might also hear it called as the rate of change. So example 1, find the slope of the line containing the points 0, 3, which I'm going to label as x1, y1. And the second point, so I'm going to use x2, y2 is 2, 5. So using my formula for slope, I'm going to do y2, which is 5, minus y1, which is 3, over x2, which is 2, minus x1, which is 0, which gives me 2 over 2, which gives me 1 over 1. Same thing on the second one, the first point, so I'm going to label it x1, y1, and then x2, y2. So 3 minus negative 4 over negative 3 minus 5 gives me 7 over negative 8. And the negative always goes with the y. So I'm going to make it negative 7 over 8. All right, the next part of your homework is going to be finding the slope if we're given an equation in intercept form. And so in order to find the slope, we're going to want our equation in slope-intercept form, which from our last lesson is y equals mx plus b. M is the slope. So the first one is 3x minus 4y equals 4. And I can't find the slope for that one because it's not in y equals or slope-intercept form. So just like in the last chapter, when we solve for a specific variable, we're going to underline the y. First thing I'm going to do is subtract the 3x to both sides. So that would give me negative 4y equals negative 3x and a positive 4, because I want the x in front of the coefficient, c. Divide everything by negative 4, and that would give me positive 3/4 x minus 1. So my slope for this example is 3/4. On example number 2, it's already in y equals form, and so my slope is negative 4. The next thing we're going to talk about is parallel and perpendicular lines and their slopes. So if you have 2 parallel lines on a graph, they will never cross. And so the rate at which they change, the up 1 over 1, must be the same. So parallel lines have the same slope, but they do have different y-intercepts. So for my example, if y equals 4x plus 7 is the equation of one line, what is the equation of a line that is parallel to it? Well, I would just rewrite an equation with y equals, and all I have to keep the same is the same slope, so 4x, but I need a different y-intercept, so I could pick anything, so I'm going to pick 10. I could have picked 8, I could have picked negative 40. The key part is that the slope stays the same, but the y-intercept is different. Perpendicular lines have two things: opposite sign and reciprocal slopes. And reciprocal, remember, means flipped fractions. And they also have different y-intercepts. So if my example is still y equals 4x minus 7, I want an equation of a line that is perpendicular to it. So I'm going to do y equals, and I need opposite sign. So this is a positive 4, so I'm going to make my new one a negative. And I also have to flip it into a fraction. So instead of 4, it would be 1/4 x. And it needs a different y-intercept, so it could be anything. So I'm going to put plus 0. We're back to talking about horizontal and vertical lines. Vertical lines do not have a slope, so we say they are undefined. The reason is, if I have this vertical line here, and we'll say this point is at 0 and this one's at 5, so I have, we'll call it 3, 0 and 3, 5. When I do my slope, I'd have 5 minus 0 over 3 minus 3, which gives me 5 divided by 0. And you cannot divide by 0. And so what we call this is undefined because we cannot divide by 0. So vertical lines do not have a slope. We say they are undefined. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. So when I have a horizontal line here, we'll say this point is 1, 4, and this point is 5, 4. When I do my subtractions, 4 minus 4 over 5 minus 1, I get 0 over 4, and I can divide by 0. If I take 0 and divide it by any number, it is going to get me back to 0. So that one, if they're a horizontal line, their slope is 0. If they're vertical line, they're undefined. So looking at this first example here, find the slope of, and I look at the y's, and it's 5 minus 2 over 1 minus 1, which gives me 3 over 0, which you cannot divide by 0. I-N-E-D. So that one is undefined. The second one, I do 2 minus 2 over 5 minus 3, which gives me 0 over 2, which is just 0. So this one up here is a vertical with an undefined slope, and this one is horizontal with a slope of 0.